Hi, my name is Beatrice Schneider, and I'm from Toronto, and I play Imogene Herdman. Imogene. She puts on, at the beginning of the movie, she puts on a really tough, she's very skeptical of the rest of the town, and she's just with her group of herdmans and just in their own world. And I think that as the movie goes on, she finds trust in the people around her, and she grows closer and closer to the people who are involved in the pageant, and she opens up more and more. I think that the best Christmas pageant ever is really about community and people coming together, and people being quick to judge other people because of how they are, if they're rich or poor, or just because of things that you really shouldn't judge people on. And I think that it's a learning curve for everybody as the movie goes on. They grow more and more. Like, they see the Herdmans as they get to know them a bit more. So at the beginning of the movie, I think that Imogene, my character, changes by sort of starts with the pageant, and Imogene, she loves her siblings. She's closed off and she wouldn't say it to anybody. She's so toughest kid in the world, and she loves her siblings. And as the film goes on, she sees that Mary she didn't just have Jesus and that was all she did and was all perfect while doing that. No, I think that she finds similarities between herself and Mary, and she finds throughout the movie that it's okay to not be completely perfect or pretty or look like the Mary in the painting. And she sees as the movie goes on that this is the best set. This is the best set. Just the best kids. The kids are also amazing. And the relationship between Imogene and Alice and Beth on screen is quite different than what you see behind the scenes. But all the kids are amazing, and I just love them so much. Yeah, I think that at the beginning of the movie, Imogene, she's very tough and closed off and just with her Herdman family, and this is it. She is Imogene forever. She is Imogene Herdman forever. Tough and nasty and threatening to stick pussy willows down people's ears and just stealing people's lockets, and she's a thief. And as the movie goes on, she sees that she doesn't have to be this way just because she was in the past. Like, she can change, and I think that this is a lesson for the town and for Grace and Beth and everybody, that they can change, that the Herdmans have the ability to change. I love Imogene's her sense of humor. She's definitely got some singers that I love playing. She's got some sass for sure.
The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is based on one of the great books ever, and it tells the story of a family and a church and a community that are stuck in tradition and stuck in a certain way of seeing things, particularly the birth of Christ. So their annual Christmas pageant is a capturing of the Nativity in the most traditional way possible, and the kind of bright, clean, American version of a first century birth in Israel, which is just not accurate. Well, the pageant ends up getting taken over by this group of the quote-unquote worst kids in the history of the world, the Herdmans, who are from the wrong side of the tracks. And they take over the pageant and take over all the main roles, and everyone is horrified and assumes it's going to be the worst Christmas pageant ever. and through their own unique perspective and the questions they ask and the impact that the pageant has on them, combined with the impact that they have on the pageant, ends up turning it into the best Christmas pageant ever. And it's warm and funny and emotional, but witty. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever come across. When I finished the book, I just said I was born to make this movie. I have so much experience with kids, not only my own, but a lot of the volunteer work my wife Amanda and I have done. I feel like I have an understanding of disadvantaged or poverty-stricken or even troubled kids because of not only our experience with adoption, but just a lot of the work we've done through our church. And so I felt like I was uniquely equipped to manage the challenges of not only directing a movie with kids in it, but then also handling the kids on the set. I just felt like this is something that I'm capable of. The humor in the story, very much my style of humor. The emotion in the story, the fact that it takes you through some darkness before we get to the light. Here's the beautiful thing about The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, the book and the movie. It's for everybody. You might think because it's primarily about kids that it's a kids movie. Yes, kids will love this movie, but this is as much for adults as anyone. It's very nostalgic. It's timeless. We film it in a timeless way. You as an adult will go, this reminds me of my childhood, but it also reminds me of parenting. And the fact that it's so funny and so witty means it's not just for little kids, it's not just even for middle-aged kids. This is for everyone, and I've spoken to so many people of all ages who absolutely love it and see it the same way that my wife and I did. So I loved it when I was a kid, I loved it when I was an adult, and I think that's true. That's going to be true of everyone. We really worked hard to make sure that it didn't feel like it was locked into any particular time period, so that when you watch this movie, even in 30 years, it won't feel dated or old. And we don't want that to happen now either. And so there's no specific decade that you can identify when you see the production design and costumes and dialogue of this movie. The first role that was cast was Judy Greer as Grace, the mother, the one who directs the pageant. And at the same time, we were casting all the kids. I'm seeing all these auditions. And we knew pretty early on that Molly was going to be an extraordinary Beth. We knew pretty early on that Beatrice was going to be an extraordinary Imogene. We saw that pretty quickly. I remember my wife, Amanda, who's a big part of the casting process, calls me over and says, "You've got to see this audition of Molly Wright. You've got to see this audition of Beatrice." We just saw this vulnerability and strength in both of them that we just thought would be beautiful. I think viewers are going to be blown away and fall in love with her in this movie. And the kids, the collection of kids, once we found our Beth and our Imogene, everything else started to fall into place. And the Herdmans all came perfectly into place, and Beth's family all came perfectly into place. I sometimes can't believe how fortunate we are to get this many extraordinary kids who can, who have all the moves, who can give us that humor and the emotion at their age. It's been really awesome. And when we came up with the idea of Judy Greer as the mom, I remember at first I thought, boy, Judy always plays characters, or often plays characters that are very sharp and funny, and she's oftentimes, as Judy Greer is known, as the perfect best friend. I thought, okay, what about her as a mom? You know, and especially a timeless mom of a family here in kind of classic Americana. And we saw a clip of Judy from Ant-Man, and where she played something different than what she normally did, and we thought, great, she's got all the colors. She's going to bring a wit to this, but also a pathos to this, and she's an extraordinary actress, and it just quickly made sense. And my goodness, every day of filming with Judy is a reminder of how lucky we were to get her for this project. All of my friends and family who are huge Pete Holmes fans, all were like, oh my gosh, you got Pete Holmes? Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought of him for this. That's so cool, that's so interesting. Oh my gosh, it makes perfect sense. And when you see the movie, everyone will agree that maybe it's an outside the box thought, but I really wanted someone like Pete who's got that sense of humor, even though it's a more straightforward character, gonna understand the timing of this movie, and he's just been beautiful. Working with kids is very interesting. I will say right off the bat that we have a great group of kids. They're fantastic. But the old adage is never work with kids and animals. And I would say that's not entirely true, because I'm glad that I've been working with kids in this movie, because it has to work. Yeah, the beauty of Best Christmas Pageant Ever is that it is for everyone. You don't have to be a person of faith or a churchgoer to get it, because maybe you can identify with the Herdmans, or maybe you can identify with just people in the community. Everyone, regardless of their faith or regardless of the amount of church going they do, has been to multiple Christmas Eve services, oftentimes goes to church on Christmas. Christmas is that time where we do remember the parts of our faith or lack thereof that relate to Christmas. So that's the beauty of this story, is that it applies to everyone. For those of us who are regular churchgoers, for whom this is a huge part of our life, for whom this story is the foundation of our faith, this movie is especially resonant for them as well. When people ask me, what is the ultimate message of Best Christmas Pageant Ever? What do you want people to remember? And it's simply this: unto you a child is born.
Best Christmas Pageant Ever, to me, is a beautiful illustration and funny story that brings to light what the angel said over 2,000 years ago, when he showed up to those shepherds and he said, I bring you glad tidings of great joy for all men. And I think what Best Christmas Pageant Ever is showing is that it really is for all men, and all men includes the Herdmans. I think the difference at Kingdom Story Company is, yes, we want to make amazing art, and yes, we need to make money, because it's the only reason you get to make more movies is if you make money on your movies. But at the heart of it all, we all want to honor the Lord in our work, making the film, and in the end product. And when you all have that as a similar goal, it changes the reasons why you make decisions, and it changes what drives you. So I think that's what makes it different working at Kingdom Story Company. The thing that surprised me the most about Dallas Jenkins is that he's hilarious. I've been a fan of The Chosen since it first came out. I've seen every season. I watch a lot of his social media posts just as a spectator and as a fan. And he's very direct in those posts, and he's very, he definitely has his points he wants to make, and he tells his story that he's trying to tell, and tells about the facts of what's happening. I did not expect him to be quite so funny. He's just really, really quick-witted, and I think that that's going to show in this movie. This movie has a lot of comedy in it, and I think it's going to show in the way he cuts it together, and in the work that he does with the actors. I think the comedy is going to really show through. I think this movie is for anybody that loves Christmas, for one, but I think it's even more so for people that have a very nostalgic feeling about Christmas. The fact that it's set in just sort of the past that is anywhere from my childhood to my kids' childhood, is just sort of setting that world of what you remember growing up. I hope that audiences take away that Christmas is for everyone. I think that that there is like we assume that everybody knows about the story of Christmas, and I think that people take away that telling people about the birth of Jesus can be something that's fresh and new for a lot of people, because they're just not familiar with it. Watching what I'm watching on the monitor every day, and the emotion of it, and the comedy of it, and the setting of it, I feel like it has all the pieces are there for it to become a family classic Christmas film. So I really hope that Best Christmas Pageant Ever is playing 30 years from now, and people just can't wait to sit down again and watch it on Christmas Eve.
I play Ollie. He's a little bit of the rascal in the movie. Not so much like Ralph, but a little bit like Leroy. He's kind of in the middle. It's probably the best, since this is my first anything, and I could not have learned how to do stuff on set from anyone else than kids my own age. And there's such a variety. Like, me and Ralph were the exact same age, but the height difference is huge. It's The cast is so much fun to just hang out with. What Christmas means to me is probably giving and meeting up with friends and family.
My character I play is Leroy Herdman. He's a very bad and rotten kid, and he really likes to pick on one kid especially. His name's Charlie. He likes stealing his lunch and everything he has. Well, the story is, it's these bad kids who go to church to do a Christmas pageant, and they audition for the lead roles. They get them, and then they show everyone what Christmas is really about. And it's also about giving people a chance and seeing what they can do. Well, I think what makes Christmas films so special is it's enjoyable all year round, and you don't have to just watch it on Christmas. You can watch it if you want a feel-good movie or just a Christmas movie. Well, it's really fun working with all these kids because they're all my age, and it does carry over to my free time. Like, we all hang out one time, we played curling, and it's just really nice because we all get along so well together. It's crazy. It's just such good kids. Christmas means to me about being with your family and just having an overall good time. And the presents are pretty good too.
I was looking at Norman Rockwell books, and one thing I noticed in his world and the way he approached visualizing and character is there was two sides to Norman Rockwell, which I could see in this movie clearly. There's the poor side. He did a lot of imagery of children that are from the dark side of a town, but he brought heart to every time you'd see an image that he would draw up. You could see the heart in it, and I don't know, we recognize our past in it. There's a sense of then that's always very present. And then there's the family side of Norman Rockwell's work, which was the Christmas, the family going to Christmas and the presence of that, and the middle class of the 50s. So those two things I felt were very strong in our story. And I said, if I tell you 1970s or 1980s, we're locking ourselves in. So I said, let's give ourselves a time window in which this whole story takes place. The important thing is that anybody watching the movie feels it happened to them when they were a kid, even in 20 years from now. So, you got to think about that. And I said, our town needs to feel charming, warm, middle-classy. I think was important because I needed the contrast with the Herdmans. Not too specific. The generic aspect was really important. All graphics, signage, all of that. I want to keep away. I said, we want to keep away from anything that states now. What will the audience think about this movie? It really depends on who's watching the movie, I think. And I mean, if you're from a religious background, you are going to identify with this, no doubt. If you're not, you are very much going to identify with it because of the Herdmans. And that's what's so wonderful about this story, is that it's not preaching, it's not pushing an ideology on you, it's making you understand that nobody should be left behind. These Herdmans, they're as much people as any other, and if you give them a chance, you'd be surprised by what they can bring to the table. I love it because I identify with them a lot more than I identify with the other characters in this story.
My character is the mother of Beth, who is our narrator. I am married. I have another son. We are members of a church. Emmanuel is the name of our church, and every year the church does a great big giant Christmas pageant, and this year the director of the pageant has a terrible accident. She breaks her legs, and I get honored with the task, almost said stuck, of directing the Christmas pageant this year. And to just add a tiny bit more stakes, it's the 75th anniversary of our church's and town's Christmas pageant. So it's a big deal. We've seen obviously a lot of romance about Christmas. She says, sitting in Winnipeg, the Hallmark Christmas movie capital of the world. And we've seen a ton of comedy Christmas and Santa Christmas, and but I haven't really seen, I think, what I would call, like, for a wide audience, like a movie that could reach like all the demographics, like a nativity Christmas story. Definitely Grace goes through a big change in the story. And that was something that was interesting that kind of evolved even after I accepted the role. I really loved the story. I loved the script. I had a really incredible meeting with Dallas Jenkins, the director, screenwriter, so I was excited to do it no matter what. And then he reached out a few weeks later and he's like, hey, I've been doing some rewrites, and I kind of feel like it would be a more interesting story to tell if maybe Grace is not so agreeable in the beginning. And so and that might even be the wrong word, but I like it because he gave her more of a journey. He gave her like a real beginning, a middle, and an end. I am no stranger to the Christmas story, so I didn't have to do that kind of research, although I found myself really agreeing with Bob, my husband, Pete Holmes, when he was asking a lot of questions about Herod. And I'm like, yeah, like, who was Herod? Like, where is he in this whole thing? And what happened to him? And I found myself kind of like agreeing with the questions that the Herdmans were asking at our first rehearsal about the Christmas story. And I was like, oh, yeah. I think when I'm playing a role, I like to try to incorporate as much of myself as I can to it. So I really loved that scene when we shot it, the first rehearsal. After I cast the pageant, we have our first rehearsal, and the Herdmans ask so many questions about the actual Christmas story. And it's so beautiful because Grace gets a chance. You know that thing where you like, I know how to do it, I know what it is, but then you have to explain it to somebody who doesn't, and you're like, oh, right, like this is really beautiful, or this is a really weird detail, or why do they do that? Why does she say this? And so it was fun to rediscover that through Grace. So I would say some of my research was done on set, but it's nice to take that away. And yes, because I spent a lot of time, I grew up in church, I knew the basics. So the movie is the memory of Beth. So my daughter is narrating this film, and it's her memory of this moment in time, which I think is a very cool point of view. And it's why, like, we don't change costumes for every single scene. Dallas Jenkins is amazing. He has a lot of energy, and he's had a very tough job. There's a lot of children in this film, and for those of you who don't understand legally what it's like to work with a lot of children, like, there's so many rules, which we need because kids need to be protected, but it does make for fun scheduling and interesting days, and it would be really hard to direct this movie. And I'm always impressed every day with how Dallas manages to get everything he needs to get shot-wise, keep his cool. The kids all seem to love him. We all love him. He's still always smiling, always happy, always upbeat. So I really have a lot of respect for him and his energy level. My favorite thing is making people laugh and have fun, especially going into the holidays. The holidays can be really, this is an overused word, but they can be really triggering for people. So like in my fantasy, some family would see this movie in the theater together, and they would laugh and they would have so much fun, and then all the emotion, you know, would like really stick around and even creep in. And like some of these themes that we talked about, I think would really, you know, stick to their ribs. But I always hope with a movie like this that mostly it will make people have fun.
It's just so special seeing these characters come to life. Again, Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson, who wrote the novel. Going to be a special film. And who doesn't love a family Christmas type film that just makes everybody laugh and come together as a family and just really then celebrate the true meaning of Christmas behind it. Just really everything that checks all the boxes for us to tell a good story. What makes the Best Christmas Pageant Ever perfect for Kingdom Story Company is it really defines the types of stories that we're looking for, which is really about, it's a rush of hope that really just showcases the power of the gospel and what the gospel can do. And so here are these kids, this group of misfits that everybody kind of discards, so to speak, the town discards them, and yet they're the ones that end up teaching everybody the true meaning of Christmas. And how beautiful is that parallel? Sometimes you can see the true meaning of what Christ did for us on the cross through the most unexpected of ways. And I love the fact that so many people are familiar with this story. We're making Best Christmas Pageant Ever for families. I mean, this is a movie to come together. It's not just kids, it's for adults. It's for creating moments for families to come together, to be able to, whether you've read the book or shared the book together as a family or not, to be able to laugh, to be able to cry. There's performances that will bring a tear to your eye, but at the end of the day, really celebrate and be reminded of what Christmas is all about. And so I love that, where you go into a theater, you hope to be entertained, and you walk out not only entertained, but then glad that you spent the last hour and a half to 2 hours in the movie theater. The way that Dallas is telling this story is so timeless, and so it's going to be able to reach an audience no matter what generation it is, because they'll be able to connect with something in the movie that is very important to them or very close to them. And I love that, the fact that he has the vision to be able to tell the story in that way, so that it is timeless, and it's this thing that we'll be able to always come back to, instead of saying, oh my goodness, look how old that is. That's not the goal of what this one is. It's to be able to enjoy it the same way no matter what, year in and year out. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, it really tells the gospel story. It tells why Jesus was born, and what happened, how people were impacted by Jesus's birth, and yet is being told from the viewpoint of little kids, which is so innocent and it's so beautiful, and it doesn't feel like you're being preached at, because these kids are the ones that are sharing this gospel story of what Jesus did, and it's straight out of the Bible. I mean, that's what's beautiful.
Gladys is really mean, and she's kind of just like wants to be mean to everybody, but she doesn't really know that she's being mean, but then she kind of wants to. And she doesn't have a lot of money, and she's a herdman, so she's the worst kid in the history of the world. So the movie is about basically where like the herdmans, like they're being like mean, and then like on the Christmas pageant they're forcing everybody to like not get the parts, so then they are the only ones in the movie, well, the Christmas pageant, and then they kind of mess it up, but they don't. And then it's kind of funny, but they're like, they just be mean to people, and then like they don't really do good in the movie. Well, the Christmas pageant. I love working with the rest of the cast. They're so nice, funny, and I never want it to end. I would be really sad if it did. And yeah, they're like so nice, and I really like them. It's been a really great opportunity.
Loved the script when I first read it, especially because Dallas had done a little intro at the very beginning of how to imagine it. So he would say Norman Rockwell and, classic. So as you're reading it, that's immediately what you imagined. What resonated for me most in the script that helped me with design choices was that it was a children's memory. So nothing had to make sense. The colors didn't have to make sense. Styles didn't have to make sense, because children have wild imaginations. We just tried to choose classic styles, which are obviously to each's interpretation. So what's classic for you may not be classic for me. So that's the overall look. So the color palette on the Best Christmas Pageant Ever is quite fascinating, and Jean, the production designer, is the one that came up with it. And it's a lot of warm and then vibrant colors, but When we were picking costumes, we went to the rental houses to start with, and I literally just pulled by each color, went through all the decades and just pulled a rack of yellows, a rack of blues, a rack of reds in all variations of colors. So that's how that came about. And then each costume piece actually started with, or I should say the whole, the look of the film. Each character had one costume piece that started the whole thing. Like Grace was her mustard sweater. That started the whole look for her. Working with Dallas has been an absolute pleasure. He's funny, he's articulate, and he's very respectful. And he lets you do your job and he trusts you. And then he's so great with the kids, they adore him. Imogene was, it all started with her sweater. I found her sweater first, and then it kind of built from there of making her a little bit harder, but still a little bit soft at the same time, if that makes any sense. I think it really shows when you see the film. Beth's coat, that color, I had that color in my head from the very beginning, so trying to search out that fabric and then finding the cranberry coat color for Mom so that they would look great next to each other, and then having Bob in his tan overcoat for church. It was just the pretty color palette, right? But it's, yeah, her coat was the beginning of her whole character.
I like to think of Ralph as somewhat of a father figure for the Herdmans, because with the absence of the Herdmans' parents, someone had to step in, and with Ralph being the eldest, he kind of had to take that role. And even if even if he wasn't the most ideal father for the Herdmans, at least he tried, and that's all that really matters. So he is a bully. He is mean in a way, and he is mean, just downright. But he definitely tries his hardest to take care of his siblings like Leroy, Claude, Ollie, and especially Gladys. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is about a group of 6 disgruntled kids who grew up on the wrong side of town, who were never really introduced to the topic of church or Christmas, and somehow found their way into a pageant just for the sake of food. So they came in with an innocent mind, not knowing much about the topic, and they showed the kids who were kind of like, what's the word? It kind of like did it out of habit and not for the love of Christmas. They showed them what the true meaning of Christmas really was. This group of kids is just so amazing. This group of actors, everyone on the crew, on the cast, it's just amazing people. And the camaraderie between us has been instant, and it's just been like, we hang out all the time off set. We have all the fun times around Winnipeg. Even though there's not much to do, we make the most of it. And we're everywhere. All of us are from different places of the world, like even the UK, Canada, USA. It's just such an atmosphere that we all connected so instantly. It was just amazing. I think Christmas is a time to spend with family. Don't get me wrong, I love the gifts, but that's not what it's all about. But yeah, really it is a time to spend with family and understand the meaning of Christmas.
Now, Claude Herdman is, the Herdmans are very poor. He's naughty, and his glasses, poor Claude's glasses, they can't afford to get them fixed. So he wraps duct tape around them to fix them, and it holds up. Is it comfortable? Probably not, but it works. So, you gotta do what you gotta do. So the Best Christmas Pageant Ever is about these 6 Herdman siblings. They're super naughty, and they stumble into a church's annual Christmas pageant. And after all of that, they finally learn, like any good Christmas movie, they finally learn the true meaning of Christmas. Oh yes, we've gone ice skating. We've done a lot of things with the other kids. They're so fun. Don't get me wrong, adults are great, but like, if you're lucky, you maybe might be able to work with one other kid on a movie. But with something like this, when there are so many kids, it's really fun, and it just feels like, sometimes it even feel like they're my real siblings. Even one time Santa came to set and he brought us all presents, so that was really cool. And I feel like that literally never would have happened if we didn't have so many kids on set. Christmas means being with family, and because especially in my family, my two sisters are ballet dancers, and they're in like Oklahoma and Idaho, and I don't really see them a lot, and most of the time in Christmas I get to see them, so that's really special for me.
So Beth is often described as a bit of a wallflower. She likes to blend into the background. Yeah, and she's called a wallflower especially by Imogene Herdman. That's her nickname. She likes to keep herself to herself, anything for a nice, easy life. But the Herdmans do not make that easy for her. And they start getting involved in the pageant. And Beth and Grace, her mom, they start to get to know a little bit more about the Herdmans, and they figure out that there is way more to somebody than meets the eye. It's a really heartfelt, funny, warm way to get across a lovely message that really needs to be spread. Barbara Robinson, the author of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, she gets it across in a really funny, warm, family way, which I really love. She's really funny. Beth and Grace, her mom, Grace is amazing. She lets them get involved in the pageant, and Grace and Beth find more about the Herdmans, and they realize that if you give a person love and attention and respect, then they seem to blossom more than others that are ignored. And when the Herdmans blossom, it's amazing. They are inside kind people, but they're doing what they can to survive because they don't have much. And Barbara Robinson gets that across amazingly. My character changes like the rest of the town, actually. The whole town changes because their perspective on the Herdmans, they are bullies, they are mean, they steal kids' lunches, they are rude, they say the curse word. But when they actually find out more about the Herdmans and they realize that they're only kids and they're poor and they don't have much and their mom is constantly working and they never see them. So they're just trying to get by, and they're not really mean, they're just doing what they can. And once the town and Beth and Grace, they find that out and they show them a little bit of love and kindness instead of just judging them, then they find out that they don't have to be those mean people, they don't have to be the bullies, they actually have the potential to be like a really nice person. They already are, but they just haven't discovered that yet. No. Well, Imogene and Beth are not friendly. Imogene and Beth don't have a very good... Let's just say Imogene isn't really friends with Beth. Beth gets really scared when she sees the Herdmans because all she knows is that they are rude. They curse. They have stolen things of hers. And Beth just likes to fade into the background a little bit because of the Herdmans, because she doesn't want to get into trouble, be embarrassed. She just wants a nice, quiet, easy life. So Imogene and Beth aren't really friendly. I wouldn't say so. Working with all the kids on this movie, it has been a dream for me. Alice, my little brother Charlie, all the Herdmans. The Herdmans aren't Herdman-y in real life at all. They are so fun. Dallas Jenkins is amazing. He is a wonderful director, and when he's directing you, you can see how passionate he is about it, and you can see like how he wants to make this movie, and he's very passionate about the message, and he's a really kind person. So working with him has been a dream. I think Christmas is about family. Christmas is that warm feeling inside when you spend time with the people who you love, and you You take time off school, you take time off work, you spend quality time with each other, and that means the world to every family I know. And I just think being together, I know this might be a lot of people's answers, but it's just so special, and it's just quality moments with your family.
If you haven't read the book, the story is basically a series of wacky events that lead to the ne'er-do-well children of the Herdmans being every part in the Christmas pageant, which turns the town upside down, and everybody assumes it's going to be a disaster. But without giving anything away, let's just say there's a little Christmas magic. There are standout themes in the story that inspired me, and that is, without exaggeration, a big reason why I jumped to do it, because it's about Christmas is for everyone, is something my character says. And I do think that, in general, we tend to turn the idea of God and the idea of the in-group into something for the shiny people, for the smiley, white-teethed people with good jobs and clean-pressed khakis that don't spit or swear or smoke. And that is not, that's not the message. I don't think that's what's going on here. You know, everybody needs understanding and compassion. And when you have a story like this that showcases something that is so overlooked, I think that's a story that needs to be told as many times as we can. I think this movie is for people like me who grew up loving Christmas and loving the story of Christmas, and then grown-ups like me who can sometimes lose touch with that. And if you're like me, I always need a reminder to see myself in everybody and to give love and forgiveness to everybody. And of course we try and do that, and then you start living your life and become a little self-centered or self-seeking. And then a story like this can open your heart. I think that's really beautiful. It's one of the powerful things about the book, and I hope it's one of the powerful things about the movie, is just a reminder that, it's not just the Mollies, it's the Herdmans. Everybody's invited to the party. Working with Dallas Jenkins was wonderful. I'm a little off-put by how handsome he is. From the moment they offered me the role, I was like, are you not available? Are you shooting the 3rd season of Reacher? What is your deal? Dallas has been wonderful. He's a great leader of the crew and the cast. Morale is really high. He never loses his cool. He has a very clear vision. He loves the material. And he gives everybody space to kind of do what they do, especially watching Judy. Judy has such a unique voice, and I can see Dallas being here to facilitate that. And he brings the best out of the kids, which is also really not a gift that everybody has. I love Christmas, and as soon as we started shooting in that house, it was like walking into a Christmas card. So the set deck people did an incredible job being on the Christmas tree lot. Even the wardrobe, I'm wearing the wardrobe now. They did such a great job picking, what is more Christmas movie than this jacket? And I get to be with these wonderful kids. I love Sebastian and Molly, and just being able to laugh in between takes. And obviously Judy Greer, I've been such a fan of hers.